Lofton with his team down by 2 to the corner. Caputo! No good! And it's over! St. Louis is going dancing. An unlikely run. Tying his career high. And here they come. The student section scores the Cardinals at St. Louis. Possession game. Mitchell. Cassidy. Ellis.
Got to get a shot off. It's got to be a 3.
Ellis. Mitchell for the tie. Got it!
Runner off the glass, no. Tip battle loose. Evans is absolutely decked by Gant. Evans stays in the game.
Speaking of leveling,
Conklin leveled Wilcox, and he's down for the count. Driving Evans for Conklin layup. Good whistle foul. Count the basket. You want to play rough? You want to play rough? Let's play.
Assume they're not going to foul you. Just take it right to the rim. Goodwin, 2 for the tie, 3 for the win. Goodwin takes it in, and he got it. We're tied. Overtime. Here we come.
Welcome to the House that Rick Built podcast with your hosts, Colin Kessler and Zach Miller. This show is sponsored by Mortgage Partners Group, where mortgage solutions are made simple.
Timeout on the floor. 68-46 St. Louis. This is Billiken basketball.
Welcome back to the House that Rick Built podcast, brought to you by Mortgage Partners Group, where mortgage solutions are made simple. Give Jason a call at 314-422-0649. Back with episode number 83. I'm your host, as always, Colin Kessler, joined as usual by Zachary Miller. Zach, how are you doing?
What is going on, St. Louis and people everywhere else? Because apparently we have more fans of the Billikens in other cities because nobody sticks around St. Louis. I don't know why I just went on that rant.
I don't know what that rant was about. I figured you would have something
I feel like it has something to do with the 16-ounce Red Bull I just housed. Because we've been up for, what have we been up since? I've been up since 5:30. And we're recording this at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
So
I was up at about 2:30 this morning, getting my stuff set up for an interview we had. The timeline of this recording will be you'll see this episode that you're watching right now, and you'll find out at the end of this episode who our interview is with, and that'll come out later on in the week. So let you in on that a little bit later, make you stick around. The irony of that is that I would say most of our audience will listen anyway, so I'm not really doing anything with that, but why not? We'll have some fun with it. Every time we keep doing this, Zach, it's the same thing. There's really not a whole lot of concrete information, but while there isn't concrete information in the affirmative, so to speak, there is concrete information in what we know is not happening. We've watched a lot of things break down. And the thing that we're seeing right now, I guess I got to start here, is first of all, it seems very likely that we will not see any of these MTE kind of bubble tournament systems. The only real form of non-conference play that we've heard of this season, it seems almost likely that we're not going to see that, even just given the way things are going right now.
It's crazy how fluid this situation is. I mean, and I think I likened it to baseball scheduling at one point. You're going to have games on the table, and then basically COVID's going to be like a rainout. And you're going to have to find another team that wants to kind of slide over and play a game.
Yeah, listening to Stu Durando talk there for the Post Dispatch with Ben Fred, it was interesting. The one thing I did take away that I really picked up on was Stu pointing out, Travis must have said to Stu that there are teams right now that are already testing positive, that are already having to shut things down because they've got positive tests. I apparently have missed this news somewhere, but if that is the
Yeah,
case,
nobody's talking about it.
I don't know. So maybe there's inside information. Maybe like HIPAA rules are limiting like colleges from talking about players getting COVID in a way that didn't affect professional sports. I don't know. It doesn't seem to have that same effect with college football. So I would assume that basketball would have been talked about. And maybe the answer here, Zach, is that people just really don't care about college basketball right now because it's not college basketball season. Regardless of what the reason is, right now we're looking at pretty much no non-conference. And again, I say that kind of tongue in cheek because like the report is from Stu Durando, the Billikens are currently scheduled to play LSU and Northern Iowa, along with one other team in the Nebraska MTE, which could very well happen. But it just seems like this is trending completely the wrong direction, and we haven't even gotten anywhere close to games yet.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of the point though, is that we haven't gotten close to the games. And we've been doing this thing since coronavirus started where we look at things from so far out that really aren't going to matter until we get to November 14th, 12th, 12th, 13th, 14th. I mean, it's not going to matter. I mean, it's not going to matter until we start really getting into where it's shutting down games specifically, or teams aren't able to enter bubbles because of COVID tests. Um, I Gosh, I really don't even know what I think you kind of have to see what the status of everything is as we start to ramp up mid-November. I think we're going to see a much clearer picture come November 12th.
Your positivity is it's wonderful, but what I struggle with the most is
Some may call it positivity. I call it, well, positivity, I guess.
it's either positivity or it's
Naive,
desperation.
there's a lot of naivety going in with it. I've kind of tended to stay, and this is a terrible thing as a podcaster whose main hobby is SLU basketball, is to
Sure.
not follow what's going on in college basketball, because I mean it's exhausting and it's a hobby. Hobbies are supposed to be fun, not exhausting. So
No, it is. I guess the thing too with it all is there's nothing to report on a regular basis for one. We're
it's all
basically
conjecture.
regurgitating. We're regurgitating reports that are, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks old. We're just, reiterating the same facts. We're still talking about we're not in Orlando. That officially just got canceled like a week ago. I thought that was canceled like a month ago. We got like games kind of on the schedule for Nebraska, but like I don't even think the Nebraska MTE has been completely fleshed out yet. And you said November 14th or 12th or 14th for a kind of drop dead date for when you have to really start to have this shored up. But boy, I'd have to argue that it's got to be sooner than that. I mean, you're talking about then 2 weeks to turn things around. Now, I'm saying that
2 weeks to slow the spread.
right, but not just that. 2 weeks that if you can't get it turned around, then what do you do with those games that can't be played? Do you go ahead and cut your losses early and try to find other teams in that 2 week span? Or, and again, this is the nature of playing in this time right now, and I understand that. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast. But to me, it seems like it makes basketball harder to see happening.
All these teams need to stop screwing around, schedule everybody in state. If you're Florida, schedule Florida State, schedule, North Florida, schedule FSU, sorry, schedule, God, I can't even
Schedule
think of it.
state teams.
You get them. Yeah. Schedule in-state teams, schedule teams across the river. Or
Yeah.
if you're St. Louis, schedule SMS. Yeah, I said it. Deal with it. Schedule SIU. Schedule SIUE. Play these games, man. Why not do state bubbles? Why not? Why isn't every state doing a bubble?
Well, the first problem is the state of Illinois itself, which I have something
Yeah.
down that we'll talk about in a little bit because I think it's going to be interesting. Not that it really matters that much. I'm really kind of stretching with it being a Billikens basketball topic, but the state of Illinois is currently, especially in the southern part, under heavier restrictions for COVID-19, and I think that there's essentially a travel ban back on. I don't really know. No one in the southern part of Illinois actually listens anymore. They just kind of do whatever they want to do, which is, I mean, at this point, whatever. Um, do what you feel like you got to do. But that, on a legal standpoint, in a state to state travel basis for one a state program in SIUE, um, I think it would be tough to see them in any way playing SLU. But you know, again, there's nothing to report. There's things we can talk about. What we can talk about is that okay, LSU and Northern Iowa, that's great, lovely, wonderful, two all right games, two whatever fine
A
games.
lot
We
of
get two
purple
games.
and yellow.
Yeah, yeah. A third game, TBD. That seems like it has to be TBD more because they either haven't gotten confirmation from the school that it's supposed to be, or that school is looking at potential positive cases. I mean, at this point, again, and I can sit here and make those conjectures, but you don't know. You don't know. Um, there was a list, and I was trying to find it earlier too, and I couldn't find it, but it was a list of like common quotes from scheduling people who were in charge of scheduling for these universities and for these teams, and the list was pretty. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious what's going on. I mean, it's an absolute cluster. No one has any idea, which means that me and Zach have even less idea than we normally would anyway. I wonder, Zach, if this is now going to prompt everyone going ahead and saying, "All right, let's just do conference bubbles,
Yep.
conference bubbles,
No. Yep.
and why take a risk? Why take a chance?"
Have I said this? Was this not one of my like? No, I didn't. To be fair, I didn't.
Well,
But
I mean, it's been floated by a lot of people.
yeah, well. What did I say? 30. You do well. I said conference only. What my idea was to do, regional conferences, just make up new ones for this year.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah, no, do a bubble. Do each team plays what? Each team plays each other twice.
And the thing is, if you set it up
That's your season.
in advance, you could probably get a few extra games in for conference season. Because the odds are, look, you could say, oh, well, if you start games before, let's say, I don't know, December 25th, like let's say you started earlier, middle of December with conference play, earlier than usual, but you can get more games in. Well, people might say, well, but they don't get to go home and see their families for the holidays. I'm almost going to guarantee that they're not letting these student athletes travel. If you want to play, I know it sucks, but you're not going home to see
Yeah.
your families for the holidays, because if you do, you're just taking an added risk through travel.
You just got to do. I mean, everything is you got to do what you got to do to do what you want to do.
Right. Right. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that if these kids feel like it's their, responsibility or they need to be home for the holiday,
No,
like
if
whatever,
you
do
want to
what you got
opt
to
out,
do.
opt out.
Right.
And
And
you
it's
should
not like they wouldn't be able to get back in at some point.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. And, again, it's pretty obvious that a lot of these guys can go to class online, so they could have a fully online schedule that they could take from a bubble, wherever that neutral site might be. And then there was a report I was reading earlier too that some school in Texas I think maybe Tech, was talking about having like fans in the arena. And I just kind of laughed about it. Like, I don't, now I want to look it up to make sure I'm not wrong, but the idea that anyone is allowing fans into a closed indoor basketball arena is
It's
kind
not
of,
even like I'm not even at that point. I'm not even like it's a health issue because like, yeah, we get it. It's been fucking. Oh, sorry. It's been beat to death. The health implications. We get it.
Mhm.
Blah blah blah. I'm not downplaying it. I'm just tired of freaking hearing about it.
Right.
At that point, it's your season is not going to continue. Like someone on your team, you're exposing your program to unnecessary risk in that you may not be able to play the next day, or you know what I mean?
No, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's Dickies Arena was the one I was reading about. I don't know who plays there. City of Fort Worth. So whatever school comes from Texas.
You said Dickies.
Wow, you were double dosing on the inappropriate comments here early in the episode. Now you can tell we just came off of an interview episode. No, I don't know. I think you have to make these kids stay home or stay on campus rather. You
Yes,
have to keep them.
if you can build in a dorm to the arena, do that too. Let's
Well, and
put up
that's another
FEMA tents.
well, and
FEMA
that's another
tents. I
interesting
got it.
conversation though too, because the housing becomes a really big question. Do you
Yeah.
really want to keep all these teams in one hotel together throughout an entire conference season with no exposure to the outside world under really stringent like
Mhm.
quarantine rules with higher levels of stress than they normally would have, and the added stresses of going up against each other in games where they might not like each other or they might get into a
Yeah.
fight throughout the course of the game. I mean, that's a terrible idea right there. Um, I don't know. I don't know. And
It's an absolute. Well, I mean,
and it
yeah,
seems also
dude,
very
I
likely that
don't
we're just going to
know.
have to sit here and say the COVID thing, whatever you want to call it, this thing that's taking over the season right now and disrupting it so completely, it's still going to be there. It's still going to be there. It's not going to change. It's not going to go away. It's not going to all of a sudden just magically disappear and be like, oh no, you're good. We don't need anything. You guys can just go ahead and do whatever you want to do. That's not how it's going to work. And the repercussions, especially for schools that allow players to go and do whatever they want to do or not follow certain protocols, it's going to be a real nightmare. And I
Yeah. I don't do. I have, like, dude, I have been critical of Chris May, which is funny that we're bringing this up again, given the interview we just had.
right.
But I mean, I'm overly critical of the athletic department and Chris May in general, mostly because I think he can. I think he's. I believe in the university, and I believe there's things that do not envy that dude's position at all right now. I
Right.
do not. I would have no freaking idea like how I'd handle this. So, Chris May, you've got a pass from me this season, buddy. I
No, I mean, what are you
I
going to say about it? I
however
mean, like
you figure this out, it's incredible.
you can't say anything about it. You can't get mad. You can't get frustrated. I mean, you get frustrated at the situation as a whole. You can get mad at the situation as a whole. But it's on the one hand, um, are you putting people's lives at risk? Are you putting kids' lives at risk to watch basketball and be entertained?
The answer to your first question, or your first question, is maybe. Second question is not even close. But yes.
And the third
But your
question is,
point.
are we being overly cautious about this to the point where it's unnecessarily disrupting this entire season?
Sort of.
Well, the opinions.
I am really middleman Zacking it over here.
Well,
I
yeah,
am
I
full
don't.
on middle. I
Well,
have no idea.
I think most people have become middlemen to a certain degree because I mean,
They need to. More people need to.
I think if you were,
I mean, look, there are times during this whole thing that I have completely overreacted. And I think everybody has. And there are times where I've probably been underreactive or less than cautious.
at the end of the day, it really, like I said, especially sitting here in Southern Illinois, and for those of you that do live in Southern Illinois that listen to this show, I think you can agree that what we're seeing right now is you can basically handle this however you want, however you feel is best for you, however you feel is most responsible for you and your situation. And
And that's why people move to those kind of areas.
well, but I mean, it's not even,
They move for the
well, but the state's locking down, and even people in Illinois are saying, no, we're not going to do that. Not everyone, but certainly there's parts to both sides of this. But I think if you were extremely to one side of the argument, say you were extremely overly cautious when this all started. Over the course of time up until now, you've become very probably burned out. And you've just become, I would almost say, desensitized to any warnings or concerns, because you're like, at this point, everything you said has either been to some degree unnecessary, concern, or you stirred up a bit of a panic. And on the other side of that, I think people that were unconcerned completely, or who said like, this is nothing, this is like silly, this is stupid, are getting to the point now where they're like, all right, fine, you do what you want to do. Like, I won't like badger you about it, but we have to find a way to then, and get this going again, get business going again, get money flowing again. And that also is an interesting conversation for college athletics, because you watch what the Cardinals are doing right now, and I wonder how. And it's not apples to apples, but I wonder how money is going to be um, really
It's
affecting the way
it's
Chris May looks at
hard.
the athletic department.
Yes. I mean, what are we gonna drop? Are we gonna start seeing cuts? We've seen cuts everywhere. So I think we need to get this. I think something needs to happen. I think, conference bubbles, 30 games. I think that's most realistic. Do it within 2 months.
Yeah,
And then we have an NCAA bubble, you know? So
yeah, I think it would be. Look, if
it's
you
it's crazy. Do we have any concrete news we can talk about? Because all we're doing is just
well, we got
like no,
BC home and
I'm
home
not.
is over. Um,
No,
the
that's done.
yeah,
And they're gonna play Minnesota.
the BC home and home is moved to 21-22, um,
Okay.
which I think was the same case with the Memphis. So basically, I would say similar to what we had kind of predicted would happen. They just have pushed back this season's schedule to next season, and this season is just going to be again figured out along the way. I liked what you said about the 2 months, a condensed conference season with an expanded
Yeah.
NCAA
I
bracket
just
season.
I don't even know. It's
It's impossible. It is literally impossible. Um, this is something concrete, and I said I would get into this in a little bit. I'll get into it now because I find it interesting, and I've kind of alluded to it as well. But for those of you that aren't paying attention right now, the state of Illinois, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, moved up a lot of counties, maybe the entire state, but I know county by county, specifically Southern Illinois counties, are being moved back into a more advanced level of warning, basically meaning that their cases are going up, their hospitalizations are going up, and their death rate is going up, at least as I understand it. Point is, things are statistically getting worse based on what the numbers they're looking at. And they also classified, and this is where it might have some implication for Billikens basketball, they classified high school basketball as a high risk sport. And so at this point in time, there's no likely chance that high school basketball will be played in Southern or in Illinois, period. Which will really be an interesting contest to watch, because the Illinois High School Athletic Association is challenging that and saying, no, we are going to play basketball. And Pritzker said, well, if they do that, there's likely going to be legal repercussions for that decision. So,
I want to see like the Keystone Cops rolling through a high school gym, like chasing everybody out with like baton, like old
that's what I'm
school,
saying. And
like an old school movie.
this is basically where, you are going to watch and see who has more authority: a mob of people that want a return to normalcy, um, and the ability to play basketball under proper guidelines and precautions, or the authorities being the police and um, the legal legislative body of Illinois. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting battle to watch. Again, depending on, and I didn't even look at the recruiting list. I probably should have. I don't even know if there is a who we're going after anymore. We might not even have targets for the next year or two anymore. But it will likely change where some of these kids are playing basketball as well. I mean, you got Chicago, which is a hotbed area for basketball. I don't know where the next big place up north would be to go. What's to say some of those kids, if they decide to leave the state, which some kids are doing right now, what's to say some of them
Yeah.
don't come down to St. Louis and play basketball down here and give Travis Ford a little bit of a chance to make it, a pitch. Now, again, he's probably going to make it on Zoom, So he could have just as easily done that if they're in Chicago. But I don't know. It's a weird time in a weird world, but I thought that was an interesting story to watch. I'll be curious to see how it plays out. I mean, I don't know. What have you seen that's solid that's worth talking about?
I guess we could. I mean, I don't know much about it, but Sean Miller got hit with 9 NCAA infractions.
Yeah, it seems like
so-
it's a really great time for the NCAA to start cracking down on
Well,
coaches.
lot of news dumps going on.
Yeah, it's weird. I say weird. I don't mean to imply conspiracy theories or whatever, but it is kind of funny how in a season that really is going to, in a lot of people's eyes, not matter, in a season where you could maybe, I don't know, hand down some suspensions for inappropriate, recruiting violations or behavior and practices and saying things to your players that you maybe shouldn't have said, Greg Marshall. And maybe suspend them quietly and be like, well, they served their suspension. I don't know that I'm not trying to imply that that's the case or not the case, but that's an interesting, it's an interesting dynamic of why are we dealing with that right now when we can't even figure out who's going to be playing games and when and where, and or if we're even going to have a season. And why couldn't we have done that, I don't know, like a year and a half, 2 years ago when these things were still happening in regular season moments? I don't know.
We also had the speaking of our big long discussion on coronavirus, the article in STL Today concerning Hassan losing his grandmother to coronavirus.
I forgot about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
I didn't
Yeah,
know about that.
I did not know about that either. I'm sure to some degree there's a level of there's some level of secrecy that they wanted to keep and protection
Sure.
for his his personal privacy. Obviously thoughts and prayers to Hassan. It's tough as we sit here recording this. The late great Sean Connery has passed away, and this is not to belittle or compare Hassan's grandmother to Sean Connery, but again, examples all across the board of people that are what is it, above the age of like 65, they say, or something, or 55.
Wait, was Sean Connery coronavirus?
Oh, I don't know. Was he? I thought he was. Maybe
I
not.
don't think so.
Oh, well then maybe
He's just old.
maybe I just randomly brought him in there. Well, yeah, he's old, but I mean, I figured that. Well, maybe Sean Connery. You're right.
Anyway,
So this is what happens.
So
we sit
but
here and
here's
spin ourselves in circles.
I know, but here's the nugget from the French article is that French tested positive for coronavirus.
Well, yeah. I'm sure he wasn't on campus when he did that, though.
No,
if he was, I'm sure he went to quarantine immediately. And
I just don't. Well, I'm just surprised. The dude is just an absolute beast.
Surprised
I'm surprised he had
steamrolled it like
symptoms
a speed bump. I mean,
yeah, dude. Like, I don't know.
speaking of other
this
things,
episode
Jordan Gillen
is
broke a
the
nose.
most. Yeah.
This is the most disjointed episode. I mean,
this is so loose. It's our episodes are probably going to mirror this season.
Yeah.
Disjointed, loose, just kind of stream of conscious. It's almost gonna. I feel like we're like floating back to our like initial couple of episodes where we just kind of chat.
Well, here's we were together doing this. Got our schedules together to do an episode, talking with a former player, doing an interview. I might as well just say it. We had Tremaine Isabella on this morning, and did an interview with him. Sat down, probably 2 hours thereabout.
Yeah.
That'll be out, hopefully, like I said, later on in the week. I don't have any exact dates or times or anything on that. I don't even know when you guys will end up getting this podcast because I've got 2 to put out and put together and everything. But we had a nice conversation with him. And that's like stuff like that is probably going to be more applicable at this point than anything current, because it's just like current. There's no stories to talk about currently, versus I thought we'll just preview the Tremaine Isabella interview while we're sitting here talking about it. I thought him talking about Cartier Gordon was one of the more interesting things. Not that it was, there was no bombshells to speak of necessarily. Not that I thought. But that was someone who had been rumored to be in some kind of bad standing or bad blood between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was an interesting difference on what I've been hearing. and the way that Tremaine handled it was certainly
with as much class as possible.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just a very well thought out, well explained answer, and we got some insight on the 40 what was it, Eric Williams Jr. versus Tremaine Isabel Jr. battle.
Yep.
Um,
Last second
it
layup.
was an absolute pleasure to talk to Tremaine again. It's been almost 2 years now since I had even seen him. So
Yeah. And it was neat to find out too that Tremaine Isabel did read, maybe still does read, the Billiken
he
message
reads the
boards.
message boards.
Yep, he was active on there and saw what everyone was saying. So
We finally we will find out, or our audience will find out why Tremaine Isabel was suspended for the first half of, or not suspended but benched for the first half of the Pittsburgh game, which I don't even want to put that out there, and like, you got to listen to the whole podcast to get that one, because that is freaking hilarious.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. He was really, I think, very honest, very open, which I was a little surprised about, just given that he's only a year removed from the team.
Yeah.
And he still has.
Also, he seems like a quiet guy as well.
Yeah.
So he was open.
Yeah, and
More
very
open than
humble.
I expected.
He took,
Extremely.
I think, I think
I
his
think he
Billiken
took
fans.
that Pittsburgh loss. He took that Pittsburgh loss personally, and that SIU loss personally.
I'll be honest. I think he took a lot of the early season failures,
woes,
yeah, on himself a little bit, and not in a kind of like, woe is me, I'm
No.
a failure type of situation, but in a, man, I gotta like figure this out, like what's going on here. And I think he was very open about that. I thought that was
yeah,
shocking.
and I think that'll come off really well, and when the audience listens to it, and I'm excited for them to hear it.
Yeah, 2 hours of an interview. We're now previewing our way through it for another 45 minutes of content. Look, this probably won't go that much longer because it's just like not much to talk about. But I do like getting back
at this point. I'm just killing time till the Chelsea Burnley match.
Well, there you go.
I'm up this early already.
Yeah. It's been a long morning already. I don't know. Any final parting thoughts? We'll do a preview whenever it seems relevant to do a preview. At this point, I could do one. I could write out the blog, get everyone to contribute, do all that stuff, and it would be wrong in a day. We could do an episode. We've talked.
We may end up doing it the night before the game. The first.
That's also
game.
very possible.
And then even then we could wake up and there won't be anything, like, it'll be irrelevant. We can wake up the next day. We could do a podcast or a season preview, and then by 5:00 in the evening, it could change completely.
Yeah, I think it's time for us, Zach, to start really shopping for some more high level interviews, and get back to that, because I have a feeling that this basketball season, while I hope and I certainly pray that we will get news, we will get information, we will get something worth discussing, I have a very bad feeling that that's not going to be the case. I have a very bad feeling that we're at the very least going to still be held off for at least another month to maybe a month and a half, before we really have anything concrete to talk about. So until that happens, we're just kind of talking to ourselves. Illinois playing Duke. I'm like throwing things out there at the wall at this point. If you guys have anything you want to hear, if you guys have interview suggestions, I'm always open to that.
If you guys know anybody,
Zoom
please
call.
If you guys please know anybody, any players, if you have any connections, please help us reach out,
or just give us ideas, because honestly, we sat here thinking about it, and I think we could talk about this for a second. I think when you look at the people that we've interviewed so far, we've hit pretty much a broad scope of different generations. Obviously, older generations.
I could use an older generation.
Certainly, there's some older generations that we haven't gotten to and we haven't hit yet, but there's also the tech breakdown between their being able to us being able to get a hold of them somehow. Now, I have just now had a thought, but I'll keep this for now because it's completely a wild hair of an idea. But there are some older generation people maybe we'll be able to get But current and very recently former generation players, I don't know that there's too many more people. Not that we wouldn't love to interview all of them at some point. I mean, we've talked a lot of those stories. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I guess we probably won't be doing any more regular episodes for the foreseeable future, pending any major relevant news that puts together enough of talking points for us to do an episode worth you guys listening to. So I guess this is just an update to say probably interviews for the time being, as much as we can do them, as often as we can do them. And we'll wait to see what happens. Maybe we'll do a quick episode with someone from St. Louis media outlets.
Yeah.
And see if they have more information and more firm, concrete ideas or thoughts on the season. But even listening to Stu Durando, I'm kind of thinking, for the guy that's supposed to be the most plugged in about the Billikens, there's not a whole lot that I took away from that where I was like, I didn't know that. So I think we're all in the same boat at this point. Billikens are practicing, look pretty good. Nice to see them back on the court.
They look great.
They look great. Hopefully we get to see them actually in action. Zach, any other thoughts?
No, I got nothing. I'm just, it's like following a game of Pong. It's just back and forth, not sure whether
Yeah.
or not.
I will say one last thing because and this is not any other than to say, if you've been paying attention, and maybe this is kind of silly of me, but the Chris May podcast has just exploded out of clear blue nowhere, really, in the last few weeks. I'd say start of September. But they've done a lot of interesting interviews with current players. Pretty short, not really the same style of long form, in-depth, detail stuff, which I'm sure it's not supposed to be, but worth a little bit of a listen. So if you're looking for current content, there's also that as well, because we just don't have anything else to talk about. Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. This has been even sadder than every episode before it. Tune back next time.
Yeah, what the hell happened?
For maybe another episode. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
No, we're gonna do this podcast. It's gonna happen. We're gonna do one.
Yeah,
it's not ending, guys. I don't want this to come off as
no, it's not ending. It's just
no.
There's just when you have nothing to talk about, what are you going to talk about? I mean,
yeah, we'll get there.
Hey, BK, can we get some jerseys in the meantime while we're just sitting around doing nothing?
Yeah, can you talk, BK? Can you even in stores? I don't even want anything given to me. I will.
Oh no, I'm not saying give it to me. I'll pay for it.
Yeah,
I'll pay for it.
I'm not. Yeah, can we? Who do we gotta sit down with? Let's get an interview.
Let me ask this question. Is it illegal? Is it a copyright infringement?
Yes.
To make
you have to ask, yes.
To make a white jersey that simply says St. Louis across the chest. Is it an infringement? I don't think so.
I think SAINT might be.
All right, so we'll do. Oh man, this is what we've come to.
We should get House That Rick Built jerseys.
I can cook up some designs. I don't know that anyone really is interested in it. Here's the other thing.
No, nobody is. Nobody is.
I mean, yeah, I would. Yeah.
What are we doing?
Nothing.
Are we doing?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Check back later this week for our interview with Tremaine Isbell.